This is the second boating seminar or sailing seminar that we've had. We're trying to, the whole purpose of having these seminars is to try and promote interest in sailing, whether it be racing or cruising. And these seminars are aimed mostly at an entrance level for people who are not yet completely comfortable about doing a lot of things in their boat. So what we're trying to do is help everybody overcome any shortcomings that they may have so that they feel better about getting out on the water and having fun and sailing. Tonight I'm going to be doing this presentation, but Thomas and Manette Burns originally were going to do it, but unfortunately they weren't able to make it because they had to do a boat delivery, a rather lengthy one from the Gulf Coast over maybe to the east coast of Florida. So Thomas and Manette are very experienced sailors. They just not long ago brought a boat over from the Azores to Grenada. They teach sailing here, so you can get lessons from them if you'd like to, and they're just fun to have around. So I'm sorry that they're not here tonight, but hopefully we'll get them on another session. So let's go ahead and get started. Tonight we're going to be talking about boat handling and docking. And I've listed here some of the references. This book, Sailing Made Easy, is published by the American Sailing Association. It's a book that Thomas and Manette, whose training program is under the auspices of the American Sailing Association, and they had pictures in the book that we'll get to later about docking. Another book I like is this little book called The Elements of Seamanship. I took a picture out of that about that I'll show you once we get going. And I also brought these other two books, Chapman's Piloting and Seamanship, and this book by John Rumenier, the Annapolis Book of Seamanship. These things can be bought used from previous editions online for very reasonable prices, but they've got excellent explanations in them about all kinds of things that we'll be talking about. So I encourage you to take a look at some of those just so that you can get even more out of it than coming and sitting here.
Can I introduce you?
Yes, if you'd like.
Most people know Skipper, and they realize what he
Here,
brings
stand over here so everyone can see.
to this particular, to something like a seminar. And we are very, very lucky in the Corinthians in that he took on the task of putting together, if not himself, getting others to do one seminar a month. And if you can, let me just say, that's a huge task, and he's so good at it. So, yeah, first up, welcome. My name is Bill Phillips. I'm the Commodore for the Corinthians this year, and we're so happy to see, I've talked to a number of you who are brand new or wanting to learn about sailing, and I'm telling you, the Corinthians is the way to go. Our task, our mission is to get more people on the water and having fun, and in particular sailing. So we're also the least expensive and best way to get out there on the water. Our membership is only $125 a year. And what do you get with that? Well, we're now having, and have always had, or for quite a while, 19 races on the North Shore and many more really on the South Shore. We're introducing some things to try to attract new people. One of those things is we're going to do 4 cruises during the year. And that's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm going to show you in a minute some candy that we're offering to you to get you interested in the Corinthians as well. But let me first introduce Skipper to you. Not only is he our lead on the seminars, which is a huge task, but he's in touch with the money. He's the treasurer. He has to cover all the money. Skipper is a lifelong sailor. Listen to these credentials. I don't know anybody that has credentials like this. He joined the U.S. Naval Academy, I'm saying just so he could go sailing. Now, I'm sure there might have been other reasons, but he immediately got into the sailing program and with them, started sailing 470s, and the Navy has these 44-foot yawls, more than one?
At that time, there were a dozen of them, yeah.
Wow. That they taught, you know, the folks how to sail. And then he also skippered a 58-foot Sparkman and Stevens, I mean S&S. I mean, if you have been around sailing for very long, you know what a fabulous design that is. And he raced that boat, that same boat, from Newport to Bermuda. They did make him do a little work. I'm sad to say for you, Skipper. For 7 years, he was a nuclear submarine officer. But he still figured out how to go sailing. He put on sail training cruises to the Bahamas and Bermuda. He had I'm so envious, a 22-day transatlantic crossing from Bermuda. He's also a maritime lawyer, and he owns one of the prettiest boats you're going to ever see. It's a Hirschhoff 44-foot?
38.
43?
38.
38 foot.
Plus 5 feet of bowsprit.
38-foot Hirschhoff, again, one of those designers that, you know, if you've been in sailing a while, you go, oh, Hirschhoff, Ketch, and whose name is Ondine. And so, yeah, here's your lecturer tonight. You couldn't have better. A little applause. And then let me entice you into the Corinthians with a little candy here. So I dropped one of these, I hope for everybody. If I missed you, then I have some here. The Corinthians always have a birthday party. This year is our 37th birthday party, meaning we have been in existence here for 37 years. This one's going to be kick-ass, if I have to say so myself. We're going to have music by the Three Blind Mice. It's great. We're going to have Italian cuisine by Leonardo's. If you haven't eaten at Leonardo's, you'll be glad you're going to get to try it here. And we're going to have a murder mystery. So as a matter of fact, I met last night with our director. So some of you might know Shimei. Shimei's wife, Victoria, she's a serious actress. And she incorporated 2 other serious actresses. And we're going to have a lot of folks, I even see some of them, that are going to be a part of the murder mystery. And it's going to be a hoot. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you turn this over, besides the candy I just told you about, and that is, by the way, March 19th, so mark it on your calendar. These are things that are going to be going on in March and April. Double-handed race on March 12th, the party. March seminar, which I think is going to be anchoring and weekend cruising. Then we're going to have a cruise to Madisonville, so that particular seminar will get you ready for that. And then the next seminar will be meal planning and cruising, and that's to get you ready for a cruising cook-off. So that's like cruising around for 4 hours while you're cooking or making drinks or whatever on your boat. And I think that's gonna be really interesting. So anyway, lots of things coming up. I strongly suggest that you go to Corinthians.org and consider joining with us. So without further ado, Skipper, it's all on you.
Well, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. I also want to thank Court Richardson, Commodore of Pontchartrain Yacht Club, who is hosting these seminars for us. We wouldn't be able to produce the seminar in this way that we're doing it without getting the help. And so, Court, we thank you very much for All right, so this is just a quick slide to talk about what the objectives are tonight. It's to be familiar with handling your boat under sail so that you can stop it at some point or pick something up in the water. To understand what propeller walk is. To become familiar with the factors to consider before docking your boat under sail. So that you've thought about some of these things, and all of a sudden when you are docking your boat under sail, it's not, what do I do next? It's, oh yeah, I know, under these conditions, this is what I'm gonna do. No big deal. Become familiar with how to approach a dock under these different wind conditions that we're gonna talk about. And become familiar with the mooring lines that you should use, that they have names and have special purposes. Now, if you have questions during the presentation, please ask them at that time, because we're going to go through a lot of different sections, and so I'd like to try and answer questions about the part that we talked about to make sure you don't forget them and that I don't forget them. So the first thing we're going to talk about is boat handling in open water. And the reason I want to talk about this is because if you are good at boat handling in open water, then you can apply those things that you know about your skills and your boat's capabilities to when you try and dock it under sail. So if you don't know how to stop your boat out in the middle of the lake, how are you going to stop it in a small congested place? So Manette said that when she takes people out on the boat for sailing lessons and they do boat handling stuff out in the lake, people really enjoy doing that. So why do you want to do this? You actually do boat handling under sail if you're coming up to an anchorage. If up in some place like New England you've got a mooring to go to, you sail your boat up to the mooring, grab the mooring buoy out and put the line on your boat and make it fast. Things can fall overboard and you may want to go back and get them. On Big J last year, one of my shoes fell overboard and I was very much interested in getting it back. But what it showed to me though is it's a good thing I didn't go overboard in cold water, because it took about 5 or 6 times to go back and stop the boat close by my shoe, which was sitting there floating. But this is one of those things, if you don't practice it a lot, you're not going to be, it's just not going to be instinctive to you to go ahead and do it. And then finally, the fourth thing here that I have on the list is crew overboard. You certainly want to go back and pick up somebody who's gone overboard in the water. Well, yeah, Albert's shaking his hands. There's some people that this may be the opportunity you were waiting for. But, so those are some examples of why this would be good. So these are the things that I think you should learn about the maneuvering characteristics. You've got this in your handout. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. How far will my boat carry headway? If I'm sailing along and I shove it up into the wind, how far is it going to go until it stops? That's really important. If you're racing, you may use that to get around a buoy when the wind has just shifted and now you can't sail around. You just use the boat's momentum to get around. The other thing is, that goes along with this, is how can I slow or stop my boat? When we're racing, you may always want the boat at full speed, but if you're handling it in close situations, you don't want it at full speed. So you need to do that. How can I quickly stop the boat, and how much distance will that take? If you don't practice this, you don't know. How sharply can I turn the boat if I need to? That's something you might use during racing to avoid a collision, but if you're maneuvering in a harbor, this is a real important thing to know, is how can I make it around this obstruction that's up above me? If you don't practice it, you're not going to know, and then you may be unpleasantly surprised by how it turns out. How can I turn my boat just using the sails? Well, there's plenty of ways to do that, and that's some of the stuff that you can experiment with when you go out on the water, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. You can back the jib. You can ease off the main. There's all kinds of things you can do to get your boat to turn. Then another thing, in the first session I talked about why you should want to sail your boat with just one sail to see how it behaves. That's something to practice, because when you're coming in to dock, you're probably only going to want to have one sail up, and it'll be the sail that's easiest to control under those conditions. So if you've never practiced sailing your boat with just that one sail, it adds another level of uncertainty that you don't want. Are there any sails I should avoid using? They're just going to get in the way. When we go to anchor under sail, we've got the jib down because we don't need it. We're sailing with the main. It gets out of the way so that people up in the bow aren't beaten up by the jib as we go up into the wind. The same thing with docking. how does my boat perform at slow speed? This is real important to know because the keel is the thing that keeps your boat from drifting sideways. As your boat moves through the water with the keel, just like a sail, it generates lift and keeps the boat up in the direction you want. As the boat slows down, the keel generates less lift and the boat's going to slide sideways more. And how your boat responds to that is going to depend upon the characteristics of your boat. So the only way to know this about your boat is to go out and play with it. What do I do how do I get out of irons? Sooner or later, you're going to get in irons, which means that the boat has gone into the wind, it has stopped moving, and it doesn't respond to the tiller. So the easiest way to do that may be to back the jib to one side, push the main out on the other side, and get out of it. But this is something that you should practice, just so you know.
I usually do that when I'm rounding the first mark.
I wasn't going to say that, Albert, but yes, yes.
Not advisable.
And lots of people do this, and something unexpectedly may get you into irons, but it shouldn't be. It's like people that fly airplanes learn what it is to stall the airplane when it goes at too high angle of attack and you don't get lift from the wind. That's basically what's equivalent in a way to what happens when you get into irons. Pilots learn how to get out of a stall. You should know and practice getting in irons. And then how will the wind turn my boat with the sails down? Usually the bow of the boat is higher than the stern. So when you take your sails down, the bow is going to tend to blow down and the stern end up into the wind. So when you're docking, that should be something that's in the back of your mind, depending upon the wind strength and everything else. Then I wrote down here at the bottom, this knowledge and skill applies to docking under sail or under power, and that you need to practice and practice and practice. And practicing can be lots of fun. Now, how do you practice? I'm saying that the way you should practice is with a milk jug. You take a milk jug and a piece of line and some weight. It could be a brick that's got holes in it and it's tied on the bottom. Out here in the lake, we need probably about 20 feet of line. Throw that over the side and then come back to it. If you hit the milk jug, it is not going to hurt the boat. If you hit the dock, it could hurt the boat or the dock. So you can do all of these things with the milk jug in the water and get practice doing all of those things we talked about before. It gives you a reference point for seeing how far your boat's going to carry headway. If you come up to the milk jug, you can shoot up into the wind and see how far the boat's going to go, and you can look back and say, that's how far I go. You get reference for that. For men overboard things, you can throw a boat cushion over the water, and that works really well because that can catch your crew by surprise so that they have to then go through the procedures. But that tends to drift, and it might not be the ideal thing to use for a whole bunch of repeated passes by. Any questions about that? That's the way I would recommend doing it. Yes?
I think another good idea is use one of your buoys, or not buoys, but your bumpers, and put a life jacket over it. That's what I've been using, throw it overboard, go back to get it.
The recommendation for those of you in Zoom world was to use a bumper with a life jacket around it as something to throw over the side for doing that kind of practice.
It's orange, you can see it.
And it's visible. And the milk jug, if it's white, obviously you're not going to do this in the middle of the night in the fog. So, but having something visible is really important. So now we're going to talk about making an approach under sail. And when I was putting this together, I was thinking about it. People who sail dinghies and boats without engines do this stuff all the time. They always are coming to the dock under sail. They are always handling their boat under sail. So it's second nature to people who do it like that. For people who have boats with engines, you get spoiled a lot of times by having the engine. So what I have here is made a drawing, and it starts down at the bottom with 1, 2, 3, and 4. This little thing this is my objective. I want to have the boat stopped at that point. And the wind is blowing in the direction of the arrow. And I've drawn a green line here for what the close-hauled course is from where I'm starting to my point. I don't want to go on the close-hauled course up to it because a wind shift could put me out of business. It could put me in the wrong place. And then when I'm close hauled, I can't speed the boat up. It only goes that little bit. So what I'm going to do is come on a close reach, and I'm going to let the main out. I'm going to have the main in, and sometimes just grabbing the whole main sheet, pull it in a little bit, let the boat get to the speed I want, then let the main completely out so that it's luffing. I've got the jib down probably at that time, and if the boat slows down too much, I just grab the main, pull it in. If you're close hauled, you can't speed the boat up that fast, but if you're on a reach, you can easily control the speed of the boat with the mainsail so that you can get it right up as fast as you want, but not going too fast. So here I've got the main trimmed in position 1. I've got the main in a full luff in position 2. Position 3, it's in a luff, but you can trim in to get your speed where you want. And then when you're downwind of where you want to go, you shoot the boat up into the wind. And since you know from practice how much headway it's going to carry, you come up right to the point where you want to stop. And if you did this 5 times, you would be able to do it 100 times and get it right. So it's something that's really quick to learn, and it's fun to do. You can even put a crew member over if you want, is the thing, but I really don't recommend that. Any questions about this idea? Now, there's one thing we're going to talk about in another session sometime, crew overboard things, and how to get back to a person overboard, and then how to get them back up on the boat. But what I want to say about this, if you have a crew overboard situation, don't engage the engine with the person in the water close alongside the boat, because it could be very easy to get that person caught in the propeller, and then you have a much worse problem than you had before. And similarly, in a crew overboard situation, you might have lines hanging over the side that then can get wrapped in your propeller, and then that can stop your engine. And so now you've got yet an additional problem. So I just wanted to throw this in here. Think about these things and just make that part of your memory. Any questions about stopping the boat, handling it under sail? Those are the techniques that you'll learn from practicing out there with a milk jug. You can do it at M1 or some buoy or something, but if you hit M1, M1's going to win and the boat's going to lose a little bit. The milk jug, you can leave it out there at the end of the day when you're done. Next, I want to talk about something called propeller walk, which I didn't know about until I'd been on a boat with an engine for a year or so. I've experienced it, but no one really ever explained it to me very much. And then all of a sudden, it kicked in what this was all about. Propeller walk is a sideways force that's created by the propeller's rotation, whether you're going ahead or whether you're going astern. The faster the propeller turns, the greater the force. A right-handed propeller rotates clockwise when you view it from astern. So if I'm looking at the stern of my boat, if the propeller is turning that way, that's a right-handed propeller. Almost every one of you who has an inboard engine, and I will say every one of you, has got a right-handed propeller on it. My boat, unfortunately, has a left-handed propeller with an outboard propeller, but that's a different story. A right-handed propeller creates a force that'll push the stern to starboard and cause the boat to turn to port when you're going ahead, and it'll also cause the boat to back to port. The effect of propeller walk is greater when you're going astern than it is when you're going ahead. So, your boat probably has a right-handed propeller. It's going to tend to go slightly to the left when you're going ahead, but it's going to back to port every time when you're going astern. Now the wind can help turn the boat in some other direction that may offset some of that, or it may increase the effect of it. Here's a little drawing that shows a boat from astern. Here's a propeller. It's a right-handed propeller, and it's going astern. So it's going to walk the stern of the boat over to the port side. A right-hand prop going forward is going to turn like this, and it's going to push the boat to starboard. This is the left-hand propeller. I have one of these, but the rest of you don't. Now, to think of this, I do not fully understand the hydrodynamic explanation for how this works exactly. Every time I've tried to figure it out, as a maritime lawyer, this is a factor sometimes in ship problems. And to try and figure this out for a court case was beyond the level of me and anyone who would have been listening to it in court. So all we need to know is this is what happens. We don't need to know exactly why it happens. But an easy way to visualize this is, let's say that we had just a big wheel on the back of the boat. Whatever way the propeller's turning, if it was a wheel running on the bottom, that is the way it's going to push the stern of the boat. So let's say this is a big wheel. If it's a right-hand propeller and it's going forward, that wheel rolling on the bottom would push the boat to starboard and make the bow go to port. If it's a big wheel rolling on the bottom and you're going in reverse, it's going to go this way, and that's going to make the stern come to port. That's the way I remember it. But after talking tonight, I probably won't forget it again either. But any questions about this? Yes?
Are outboard motors usually left?
Outboard motors, the question is, are outboard motors have less of a wheel walk?
Are they usually left?
Left instead of right.
Oh, I don't know the answer about outboard.
Oh, no, inboard.
Inboards are usually, outboards, I don't know
But
that.
yours is left.
Mine's an inboard, and it's left. And, but
But most are right.
most are right. Probably 99.9% of the ones that are put in boats are right-handed. But you need to know that when you get on your boat, and what I'm going to talk about in just a second is how you can go figure this out. Because when I was talking with Thomas Burns about this, he says, yeah, you know, this is what you have, propeller walk, but he says every boat that I ever get on, it behaves a different way. And that is absolutely true, but as long as you keep this in mind, you're not going to be surprised by something your boat does. The effect of it's going to differ, and there's going to be other factors, wind and things, that will contribute to it. But the whole point of this is so that you are not surprised by this, and it's a predictable thing that you can use to your advantage. Now let me talk about how to figure propeller walk out. On a calm day, go out when the wind's not going to be a factor and the seas aren't going to be a factor. Go out there and put the rudder amidships and lock it amidships if you can lock it, or have the tiller amidships under power, and watch what happens to the boat. It should start to slowly steer over to starboard, going ahead. Now while it's going to starboard. You've seen that that's it. That's what you would expect for propeller walk. Now put the engine in neutral. The rudder's amidship. The boat should straighten out because the propeller walk has gone away since the propeller's not turning anymore. Then when the boat comes to a stop, still with the rudder amidships, it's going in a straight line. Now put the engine in reverse and speed it up. You should see the stern start to back to starboard. That will show you how much propeller walk you get for your engine, and remember, it's going to change with the speed of the engine. Any questions about that? That would be a real simple way to go out and test and see how much effect you have on your boat. Is there ever a time when this propeller walk can be used to your advantage? Yes. When would that be?
Sometimes at docking, it depends upon the wind, I put a line on the bow, and I was able to prop walk it in to lock it into the stern.
Yeah, the question for those of you on Zoom, if you didn't hear it, is yes, you can use this to your advantage. In docking the boat, it can swing the stern in, and we're going to talk about that later on. Another thing that it can do is it can help you turn in a restricted area. So this next drawing that I have here is the photo part of it here is a little bit confusing because it's showing the bottom of the boat. But if we have a boat with a right-handed propeller, which is what you have, and you want to turn in a confined place, help yourself out by turning to starboard. Right-hand propeller, turn to the right. So what you do is you go ahead you put the rudder in the tiller over to port, or the wheel all the way to the right, so that you're starting with that right turn. You kick the engine ahead to give a blast of prop wash onto the rudder. Without building up the boat's speed, that'll start pushing the stern over. You let the boat start turning, then what you do, because the stern is swinging to port now, you put the engine in reverse and you speed it up in reverse. That starts pulling the boat further around with the prop wash to the port. And the bow will swing to starboard and the stern will be going to port. Then, when that goes a little bit, you shift the engine again. You put it neutral, then back ahead, kick it a little bit, that puts prop wash again against the rudder, and that keeps you going. And you keep working it back and forth like that, and you'll find that you can turn your boat in a little bit more than its own length, which is a really helpful thing in maneuvering in harbors and stuff like that. So that's another thing to try on your boat when you go out on the lake and you've got your Clorox bottle or whatever floating in the water. You can see how much room it takes to do these things. Any questions about that? And I think that this is an important thing because no one explained this to me when I first started dealing with a 44-foot boat under power, and there were a whole bunch of times where if I had understood that this was how it was going to work, the scene would have been a lot prettier than it was. Now, I put this picture up here of yacht club launches. If you look at this picture, there's 4 yacht club launches. Everything about these boats is shifted to port. The helm position, port, all 4 boats. The ladder to get on and off the boat is to port on all 4 boats. Where's the rub rail, the padded rub rail? It's only on the port side. There's none on the starboard side. Rub rail, none. Rub rail. Why is that? It's because the Yacht Club launch has got a single screw right-hand propeller, and it's never going to go starboard side to a boat. It's always going to go port side, just the way you were talking about before with the engine. Propeller walk is going to pull the stern in. The Yacht Club, the launch operator, he's going to come shooting up to the side of the boat at an angle to the boat that he wants to pick up someone or let them off. And then he's going to put it in reverse and gun it in reverse, and the stern's going to swing into the boat. He's going to reach over at the middle of the boat where he is, and he's going to either hold onto the rail in the boat, or he's going to put a line around a stanchion or something like that and hold the boat there. People will get on and off here, and then he gets away. When he gets to the dock at the yacht club, he does the exact same thing. And that way he's always got this control from the engine to swing his stern in so that it would be completely difficult. It would different and more difficult to do it on the other side. So this just shows these boats are designed at the factory to take advantage of prop walk. Any questions about that? Yes.
Can you back up one slide for our Zoom audience
Yes.
for just a second?
Is there a question that someone has?
They want to grab a screenshot of it.
Oh, okay. And the on the Facebook page for Corinthians and the Lake Pontchartrain Sailors Facebook page, I posted a copy of this last night, so you can download it there or look at it. And after we're over, I'll put another version of the final version of this in case anybody wants
Do you
it.
have last one also? The last one, did you?
Yes, I
post
posted it also, and if you just want the handout, I have a printed copy of it over here. All right, so now that we've talked about these boat handling characteristics, now we can talk about docking under sail, because all the stuff that you know now about how the boat's going to handle, and you're not going to be surprised, you're going to use that when you go and dock the boat. If you're a dinghy sailor, every time you get underway and come back, you're doing these things without the engine, so it's second nature to you. Albert shared a story with me about one time being out sailing and coming in with and the engine wouldn't start. And then he had to dock the boat under sail under a pretty windy day, wasn't it? So, and that was not something you had practiced before. And
Saw it in a book.
he saw it in a book. So he thought about it,
YouTube it at the last minute.
and he successfully did it, doing all of the things that we're going to talk about tonight. But the whole idea is for you to be able to do this stuff, to have thought about it to some degree beforehand, so that if an emergency comes up like that, it's not all of a sudden, well, you know, I've never really thought about that before. No, it's something that you thought about. You may not have done it all the time, but it's not, you're not going to be completely taken by surprise. And this is the part of the seminar that Manette and Thomas put together. And it's, I think that they did a very good job laying the stuff out. And so what they were saying is they've called docking under sail controlled crashing, and in a way it kind of is, because you don't have the ability that you have with the engine to back down hard and stop the boat. You can't do that. So what you have to do is meter out the boat's speed by trimming and easing the mainsail so that you get just enough speed coming up to the dock. So sooner or later, even if you want to sail to the Caribbean, eventually someplace along the line, you're going to have to dock the boat. And if you don't have the engine, this is what we're going to do. So the first step is to plan ahead. As you're coming in, if you're going to dock the boat under sail, or you should just be thinking about this probably all the time anyway, in case you have to do it, is say, where's the wind coming from? And try and visualize how it's going to be blowing relative to the dock. Is it going to be parallel to the dock? Is it going to be blowing you away from the dock? Is it going to be blowing you onto the dock? That's real easy to figure out, but it should be just something that you do. And then you should talk to your crew about it, of course, also. As you get near the dock, assess the situation and put together the plan for maneuvering to the dock and stopping the boat just as you reach it. Then you have to decide what approach you're going to use, and that's going to depend upon how the wind is blowing and how the dock is situated. And you need to prepare well in advance with three things. You have to give instructions to your crew so that they're not surprised, so that this is something that works out like you've done it 100 times, even if you haven't. You have to get your dock lines ready, and you have to get your fenders ready. And all of that can be done well in advance. And you can even turn around and go back out into a more open place, get all this stuff ready, and then come back in. So this is something I got from this little book, Elements of Seamanship. And the idea is, in this planning ahead thing, plan an escape route, because something may go wrong. So especially, here's a little crowded harbor that has a bunch of boats in it, and the person coming in wants to get up to this spot up here. So the wind is originally coming from the top of the page, so this big block shows how they would tack and get up to it. But what happens if the wind shifts? Well, an experienced person is going to be thinking about that before they ever get in the harbor and say, if the wind backs, I'm going to get headed, and so what I'll do is come and I'll dip under the stern of this boat, then I'll be able to tack behind this one and come back up to the spot. And if that doesn't work, I can always tack around and go behind this boat. Just have a plan for what possible alternatives might be there. It's simple to do, but that way you don't get yourself surprised as skipper of the boat if something changes that you have no control over. The dock lines are dock lines when they are in the locker, but then they have names when they come out of the locker, and you should know those names and use them. I have a picture of this next, but I'll just go over what we have here. The dock line, the bow line is the dock line that secures the bow. That's pretty obvious. The stern line secures the stern. The spring line is a dock line that keeps the boat from moving forward or aft. It's a diagonal line. And it's also called sometimes a stopping line, because that's what you're really going to want to do with the spring line when you make your approach into the dock. And then I added a breast line. That's a line that's perpendicular to the dock. It's going to be a little short line, but that keeps the boat from moving in or out. You're not going to use the breast line until you get the boat in position and you want to nail down where it is. The spring lines will keep it from going fore and aft, but breast line near the middle of the boat will keep it up close to the dock so that it's easier to get on and off the boat. Here's a picture to show those lines. Number one, the big red dots are pilings on the pier. These green things are fenders. And then the bow line is number one. It's going to the piling up there. Line number two is a spring line, and it's a forward spring line. It's called forward spring line because it leads forward. And the purpose, what this line does is it keeps the boat from moving backwards. Number three is the breast line. It keeps the boat from moving in and out. Number four is the aft spring line. It heads aft on the pier, and it keeps the boat from going forward. And the stern line is the stern line. Now, if you look at the angular relationship of the stern line and the bow line, they do have a combined effect of being like a breast line perpendicular and a spring line being at an angle. On Navy ships, the lines are numbered. And so you have line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, depending upon how big the ship is. And when you give orders to line handlers to take in, cast off, whatever, it's done by numbers. But the names are used also. There could be multiple names. But the way you call them is the way that the direction that they go from the ship. Any questions about this? It's not complicated, but that's just what it is. For fenders, this is the most important thing about fenders. Your body is not a fender. Who would volunteer for me to take a 2-pound maul, 2-pound hammer, and drop it from on your foot or your hand from a height of 1 foot above it? Anyone want to volunteer for that? This is a 2-pound maul. It's only 2 pounds. How much, does anyone in here have a boat that weighs less than a ton? How much faster do you think the boat might be coming into the dock than me dropping this thing from a foot above? Do not put any body part ever between your boat and the dock, or if you're racing or something, your boat and another boat. Because the body part will get severely smushed, and it may be a long time before you get any kind of medical attention. So never use your body parts as a bumper. If you don't have a bumper, don't stick your hand, your leg, anything in there. Just let whatever happens happen, because the boat is built a whole lot stronger than your body is. So that is an important thing here. And the point that they're also making is put a couple of fenders when you're getting ready to come into the dock at the widest part of the boat, hung at a level so that they'll match the level of the dock that you're trying to keep them off and to protect the hull. Now once you get in there, you may have to adjust the level of the fenders as conditions change and dock lines change. There should also be another fender that just a crew member has and can go and put in a place where it's needed, because where you pick these first couple coming in may not be where you want them at the end. My boat has got a whole lot of curvature, so up by the mast, so I usually put 2 right there, and then once I get the boat stopped, then I move them further aft. So, any questions about this? All right, and then this is a picture. This is like the textbook photo of what you should have going on when you come to the dock. You've got a guy in the bow who's got a fender, and he's going to have the bow line available to him. Here's a guy who's got the spring line available to him, and the helmsman is back there, and he is controlling the boat speed with the main sheet. He's either letting it off or bringing it in to quickly accelerate the boat. You can think of the main sheet as the accelerator pedal or the brake pedal for the boat. And on if the boat's small enough, just grab, don't go pulling it through the rocks, just grab the whole line, pull it in, let it out. I can do that on my boat. The main's not that big, and you don't need to pull it in too tight, you just need to get it in a little bit to accelerate the boat. So, Thomas and Manette said this is the golden rule of docking, and I think that this is usually 100% right. Never go faster in your approach than you are willing to hit the dock. So come in slowly. The only time that you may need to come in at a higher speed is on a really windy day if the wind is blowing you away from the dock. Because what will happen is if you come in at too slow a speed, your keel will stall out and the wind will just set you away from the dock. And you can't keep the boat from slipping sideways unless you come in at a higher speed. But if you do come in at the higher speed, then you need to be ready to stop the boat. So this is the golden rule: never go faster than you're willing to hit the dock.
So that's where we yell, "We're coming in hot!"
That's where you yell at, yes, yes.
Get out of the way.
So these docking approaches are the different things, situations that could happen. The ideal one is to have an upwind approach where you just come up into the wind's working to help you slow down and stop the boat, and you just gently glide into the dock, and there it is. Or the wind may be setting you off the dock, so you come up underneath the dock and go up to it. The most undesirable one is where you have to approach parallel to the dock with the wind behind you. So then you have no way to really to stop the boat other than using a line, so you're going to want to kill all your speed some sort of way. And then a final condition is one where the wind is actually blowing onto the dock, and so you want to stop your boat outside of the dock and let it slowly drift in. We'll go into those in more detail. So this one is the first one where this is the ideal situation where you have the wind parallel to the dock and you bring the boat up just like we brought it up to that buoy or Clorox bottle or milk jug out there. You're controlling speed with the mainsail. You've got the jib down because it's going to be in the way and it's going to be something you can't control. All of these are going to be with the jib down. You control the boat speed with the main and you time it just so that the boat stops when it's right here. And you get your spring line set up and your bow line set up, and then it's drop the main and you're done. That's the simplest version. That won't always happen. So the explanation for that is to get the fenders ready, jib down, dock lines ready, and designate the crew member who's going to step ashore and not jump. Have a controlled step, because you don't want that person falling between the dock and the boat and becoming the fender that you don't want to have. And this says when a boat is about a boat length downwind, turn up into the wind and just shoot up and then stop. You're going to know exactly what that length is because you've gone out and you've practiced in the lake and you know how your boat carries headway in the different conditions. Any questions about this type of approach to the dock?
If the wind's blowing out of the east, you're in trouble. You have to let your,
Well, that's the last one we're going to talk about, and we are going to do that. The question was, you're in trouble if the wind is coming out from the east or from the right side of the picture, and yes, that is going to be a difficult situation.
let the main out a whole bunch.
Yes, and maybe and what we'll do is we'll drop the sail when it gets out here. We'll bring the boat up into the wind, drop the sail. It's still carrying headway because I know how long my boat's going to carry headway, and then I turn the boat parallel and let it come in. But that's like the most advanced one of these. All right. Now, we talked about when we were looking at the lines, number 4 line, the spring line, the aft spring line that goes to the pylon. That may often be the first line that you want to get off. There's 2 ways that you can, because it stops the boat from going forward and it also pulls the boat sideways in towards the dock. So if you have a choice of getting one line over, it can be the spring line. But now you don't have a whole lot of crew members. You have to make a decision before you get there. How am I going to tighten that line? If the crew member goes ashore and with the line, if you want him to tighten it, he has to be able to tighten it over there. So it has to be made fast onto the boat beforehand. If you have enough crew members, or there's someone standing on the dock, you can put an eye in the line, hand it to the person on the dock, that person puts it over the cleat or the piling, and then someone on the boat takes the slack out of it. But that's a decision that has to be made in advance, is how am I going to tighten that line? And as the boat continues to move up, if it's just cleated off, eventually it's going to get tight, as long as it's being held on the shore. So that is something to think about. The spring line, in my mind, is the most important line to get over. And if I have the engine available, I can stop the boat and keep it there for a year with the spring line in the engine. But we'll get to that. So here we had the simplest one, which is the direct upwind approach. So now we have a situation where this is an upwind approach to the dock, but the wind is blowing us off the dock. There's no obstructions. So this is going to be similar to what we did to come up on this other thing and stop the boat, come up to the milk carton or milk jug. So you bring the boat up, you kill the way down to where you have just enough way. With the main in a full luff, you just steer the boat parallel to the line, dock, get your line over, let the main all the way out so that it's not doing anything, not propelling you forward, and get the sail down and then finish tying the boat up. Yes?
When you say let the sail out, do you mean open it up or close? You mean open it up?
I mean, let it luff. Let's say I'm standing facing forward on my boat, and the wind's coming from over here. As I'm coming in, I'm going to be trimming the mainsail in, watching the speed through the water, and then when I got the speed where I want, I'm going to let the main sheet completely out, and I'm going to want the sail to drift so that it's completely parallel to the wind, and it's not generating any lift or anything.
Boom out.
The
So
boom,
it'd
the
be
boom.
like this.
Yes,
The
it should be
sail
flapping
would-
sideways. And that's what it is right here. You can see it's kind of wiggled. Here it's luffing a little bit, but not as much, but here it's completely out, here it's completely out. It's completely parallel to the wind. So it's not providing any drive at all. It is providing drag that's going to push you away from the dock,
Yeah.
but there's nothing you can do about that. But since you've practiced out there in the lake, maneuvering your boat, you'll know exactly how it's going to behave when it gets there. Yes?
Is that an angle or is that like the width of the sail that you're letting in and out? Is that an angle that you're opening it up like this and turning it? Or is it where you're extending and retracting the sail?
All right, the question is what is the angle that I let the boom out to?
No, in the depiction, and when you say let out the sail,
This one here.
I see that the angle changes on the sail. So what I'm trying to figure out is when you say let the sail out, are you opening the sail to a wider angle
Yes.
or a different angle? And so that doesn't involve opening the sail up versus rolling it up?
Oh, no. The sail's going to be completely up.
Okay.
It's going to be completely up. And in this position right here, the wind is coming from the north. The boom is like at an angle. So the wind is hitting the sail, and it's giving me some propulsion going ahead. When I've got enough speed, then I let the main sheet completely out. So now the sail is just dragging out to the side. It's all the way up on the mast, but it's just dragging off to the side. The boat, because of its momentum, is continuing to move along, and then I just get out into this position, and the sail is just dragging over to the side. And it's not causing the boat to go forward at all.
Thank you.
And then once you get in that position where the boat is here, obviously the mainsail is hindering whatever you want to do. You're not going to leave the boat with the main up and hanging over the side. So what you'll need to do is lower the halyard and bring the sail in and put the sail away, however you put it away on your boat. Now, the jib, on all of these things, the jib's already out of the way. Whether you have a roller furling jib or whether you get a jib on hanks, it's going to be down, rolled up, whatever. But don't take the sheets off of it, because you may need it for something to, when you go to plan B, because plan A didn't work. So have that jib ready so that it can go again if you need it. All right, this is another approach where we have to This is the downwind approach, and this is the one that is kind of the least desirable one. For whatever reason, there's something, an obstruction down here in the lower left-hand corner, so that we can't make that approach like we did in the first one and come up from down below. So the only way we can get into this position is the least desirable way. It's to come up to windward of it and then come down. So we're going to get our lines ready. We're going to talk to the crew about how we're going to do this. We get the fenders over and jibs down. Here we've got the full main. We come up, the main's luffing. We get up into the wind and we drop the main. We're carrying headway. The boat's still going, but we've dropped the main so that it won't fill out when we turn downwind. Then we turn the boat downwind, main's down. I've got headway, and I'm carrying the boat, and I just steer it into this position. And I'm going to get the spring line out and stop the boat's forward momentum, and either get a stern line over or a bow line to hold it in place. Now, which lines you choose and how you do them is going to make either this a very difficult thing or easy thing. But what you want to do is make sure that you have just enough speed to get the boat to come around in this corner and then drop down. Now, what you need to remember is that if there's much wind at all, once you get the sails down and you turn around, your boat's going to start sailing again just from the wind blowing on the boat itself. So even if you lose a lot of speed up in the top part of this, you're going to start picking up speed as you come down, and that's going to help you be able to steer the boat. So this is the trickiest one. And then what happens if you're coming
Hopefully.
what's that?
I said, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. If you have room down here, if something isn't right, go around, come out, put the sail up, and do it again. Always have an escape route available in case things don't work right. Any questions?
Now, in this particular example, the sail is actually rolled up at this time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're gonna get up to windward, and we're gonna drop that sail so that it's gone. And one thing that might happen is this might be a situation where you'd want to use the jib at first. If you had room, maybe you could. It's going to be dependent upon your boat, and you'll know how your boat handles because you've practiced with maneuvering it, and you're comfortable with what it's going to do with different sails. Any other questions? Adele, did you have?
Well, I was gonna say, this one, the sail is down.
Yes,
In
it's
the previous
it's
example,
down.
the sail was
So-
up, but out.
Yeah.
So we're just using the windage on the boat to give us some speed to come in and dock. That's the explanation about it, which you can read. And then this last one is if the wind is setting you onto the dock. And this one is a little bit tricky. So it's going to be the same sort of idea that we did just now. What we're going to do is we're going to use the boat to get up to windward of the dock. Take the sail down. This is the one we just talked about. And we're going to coast in. But here we're coasting in parallel to the dock. In this one, we're going to come up into the wind, make sure we have enough headway to make our turn, drop the mainsail, there's the mainsail down. We're going to steer the boat just off of the dock and let the wind gently push us in.
So this is where we decide to go to the next port, right? Is that
Yeah.
this scenario?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Look, all of these things, especially if you have a bigger boat, they're tricky little maneuvers. But the whole point of talking about it tonight is so that you aren't caught by surprise. If you get in a situation that the engine isn't working and you have to put the boat up on the dock. That's the whole idea of this. And so that you don't want to be, the first time you ever have thought about this in your whole life is when there's a thunderstorm coming through, you're starting to rain, you can see the wind is going to get a whole lot more, now what do I do? You may be in that situation, but you can say, you know, I have practiced this kind of thing before, and there's not going to be a problem. I'm just going to do these things that I've thought about. I've handled the boat out in the open water so that I'm comfortable with how it works, and then you go on in.
Just call Skipper.
Well,
Right.
I can't get there, but the, you know, it's not always going to work perfect, but if you follow these ideas, it's gonna be a whole lot closer to perfect than it would have been, and it's not gonna be a complete disaster. And then always, since you've got an escape route planned in your head, you've got some way to get the boat out of danger. If let's say it starts going faster than you want it to, then you know how to turn the boat, you know how to get out, and that's the idea, is to try and get away so that you don't damage any people or damage the boat.
Yeah.
Bill?
I like to have a plan C, which is my anchor. And just, if you get in a bad situation and you need a temporary stop to get your head right or to figure out what you're gonna do, go to the anchor.
Yeah, for those of you on Zoom that might not have heard that, Albert and I talking this afternoon mentioned the same thing, how important it is to have an anchor available, ready to let go in a situation like this. Because let's say that you tried to get in without the engine before the thunderstorm hit. Now, just as you're getting into the harbor, the wind picks up to 30 knots. You don't want to do any of these maneuvers probably with 30 knots. So if you can just let the anchor go and hold the boat till the calm after the storm and then deal with it, that would be the perfect thing to do. So not all boats have anchors ready to go, but if your boat does, and you're doing this sort of thing, you may want to get the anchor ready when you're preparing the docking lines and the fenders and all that kind of stuff, just in case you get in a pinch, then you can stop the boat. The other thing that you can do is you can take the anchor around to the stern, and if you think you're going to be coming downwind too fast, you can let the anchor out over the stern. The boat's going to always be drifting down, and you just put the anchor line around a winch, and that way you can control the speed of the boat so that you come in a controlled way. And then once you're in, you can figure out how you're going to get the anchor on. That's the least of your worries. Any questions about that? So we just talked about it. Now, we'll finish up with just real quick a couple of things about docking when the engine is available. Generally, the same approach applies if you're able to use the engine when docking. All of these things that you've thought about, when you have the engine, you can control forward speed better, you can stop the boat more quickly, you can use the propeller walk or propeller thrust and the rudder to twist the boat, and you can use propeller thrust, the rudder, and a spring line to hold the boat at the dock. And I've got two pictures to talk about this. So this is a picture of how to use the spring line and the rudder when you've got the engine to hold the boat at the dock. So the only line that I'm going to put over is the spring line, and I've got it going to a winch on the boat or something to make it fast. The spring line keeps me from going forward. It's also, because it's after the pivot point on the boat, it's going to try and keep the boat up towards the dock. To get the stern in, I start the engine and I put the rudder to the left, the direction that would push the bow away from the dock. And so what that's going to do, the thrust's going to come out the propeller, it's going to pull tight on the spring line, which is going to hold you in place, but when it hits the rudder, the thrust is going to come out to the side, that's going to push the stern in. And so, depending upon where I have my spring line set up, just using one line and the thrust of the rudder, I can hold the boat there alongside the dock. Then, I've got time to go set the other lines out, get the boat where I want, and stop the engine. Any questions about that? I learned how to do this. I saw someone do this, and again, I had never thought about this, but after seeing it done in practice, it is a remarkably simple thing that gets you that secure feeling alongside the dock. But getting the spring line over and getting it in place is an important thing. Any questions about that? Now, the final thing is getting away from the dock when you have the engine available, because sometimes the wind is blowing you onto the dock. And like you have a 10 or 15 mile an hour wind setting you onto the dock. You can let all your lines go, and all you're going to do is stay there. So how do you get the boat off without banging it? Well, we're going to use the engine again, but this time what we're going to do is we're going to take this we're gonna put an aft spring line way forward on the boat. And we're gonna put fenders up there. Get rid of all the other lines, and then we're gonna go ahead on the engine, and we're gonna put the propeller, put the rudder to the right to turn the boat this way, and what that's gonna do is put the rudder thrust towards the dock. The boat is gonna pivot up here, the bow is gonna come in close to the dock, and the stern's gonna swing away from the dock. When you get the desired amount of stern swung away from the dock, then what you need to do is take in the spring line and start backing up. Yes. Now now this looks real simple, but the thing that's gonna be a problem is that the wind is still blowing you, the bow is higher out of the water than the stern is, so as soon as you let this go and start backing up, the bow is gonna continue to wanna swing around. So you'll have to anticipate how you're gonna deal with that. And sometimes what I've done is I've had a person on the dock holding it. If it's a passerby who's there and will help you, that's perfect. If it's one of your crew members, then they can hold it until the point where they have to climb on the boat. But that's the better option maybe than waiting for 2 hours until the wind dies down. Another thing you can do, talking about the anchor, is if you can have someone set an anchor out to windward of you, then you can pull the boat out on the anchor. And depending upon where you have the anchor set, how much line you use, you can pull the boat completely around into the wind on the anchor, and then it's just getting underway from the anchor. So the anchor is an important part of boat handling and maneuvering around the dock sometimes. And I have a friend who is a captain on military sealift command ships, and he has used anchors to get in and out of harbors where there's not tugs available by just dropping an anchor, pivoting the ship on it, and getting around. So if a big ship can do it, then a much more maneuverable sailboat can do it also. Now I want to say, again, thank Thomas and Manette for helping put this together. And they wanted to give an acknowledgement to the American Sailing Association for those diagrams that they put in here, which were very, very helpful. Any questions?
Very good.
Thank you. So this is our second Zoom conference, and we're still, because we wanted to implement this at the beginning of the year, and we got off to a quick start. I'm still looking for people who want to be volunteers to help with other seminars down the road. So we will try and do them monthly as long as the schedules of the presenters, the availability of a place to, like Pontchartrain Yacht Club, to host it, and all of that works. And there are other activities. We're going to have our cruise in the beginning of April, and we don't want to have too much stuff going on at a time. So we will try and keep everybody informed of what we're actually going to do as we go.
Question.
Yeah.
That cruise over to Madisonville, you guys gonna go on the wall, or is it gonna be an anchor out kind of deal?
On the wall is what we have planned
Okay.
right now,
On the
because
north side or the south side?
on the town side, not the Marina del Rey side.
Probably like
Oh.
like the north side of the bridge or south side of the bridge?
That's a good question, and let me say, yesterday I called the town of Madisonville to see if I could reserve any spaces, and they said no, it's first come, first served. So what we'll have to do, if we don't want to deal with going through the bridge, we'll go on the south side of the bridge. If that's not available, then we just have to coordinate, give the bridge tender notice in time to get the bridge open.
Okay.
I've stayed at both places. They're both equally protective for the boat. Which side you're on really only makes a difference from which restaurant might be, or bar might be the shorter wall. So that's something that we'll have to figure out on the day that we actually do it.
Very good.
Skipper, I wanted to mention something. I had talked to a number of you that either don't have a boat, or maybe you do have a boat, but you would like to be sailing with somebody else to learn. And that is as simple as showing up for a skipper's meeting, which is typically 10:30 on a Saturday morning, or I have my name and my email address here. We've been encouraging people to come join us and like us and join Corinthians, and so we've been having a lot of people come join us the last several races. So if you let me know that you're coming, I'll make sure that we have a boat suitable for you to go and have fun on.
For those of you on Zoom, if you didn't hear what Bill said, if you don't have a boat and are interested in sailing, on the North Shore, one of the things that we've been trying to do is to put people on boats who show up for the skipper's meeting on the day that we have our races. So we've been able to accommodate people on different boats for the last few weekends. Bill, you just contact us through Facebook or by email, and if you're interested, and let us know so that we can try
Or
and
just show
get
up.
something set up. Yeah, or just show up. That'll work too.
And what's the time again?
The time varies. Right now in the fall or the spring, 10:30 is when we're doing it.
Until we
On
start the summer
Saturdays.
series.
The website is not totally up to date, but I think we've been posting it on Facebook,
Yes.
when the races are. And very soon, it'll be on the website, all the races for the whole year. And so you can choose a date that works for you, and it'll have what time the skipper's meeting is as well.
It's also in the club weekly email.
Oh, good.
There you go.
Any questions from Zoom participants? All right. Well, if there are no other questions, then thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you, Skipper.